On one side, there is only a 5-man modern tank crew. They have just one M1 Abrams. Facing them is the strongest Persian army in history. Around 250,000 soldiers, cavalry, archers, war chariots, and the immortals. Their mission is to neutralize God King Xerxes, stop the Persian army from passing through Thermopylae, and save the 300 Spartans. Let me say this right now. The year is 480 BC. At the pass of Thermopylae, 300 Spartans and their 7,000 Greek allies are defending the narrow passage. But everyone knows that if the Persian army breaks through this pass, almost nothing stands in its way. In normal history, the Persians begin to outflank this defense from behind. Once they are outflanked, the Greek warriors run, and the 300 Spartans are forced to fight alone. But let me say this right now. The story changes, because behind the Persian army, a strange sound suddenly rises. The M1 Abrams emerges from the dust. At first, the Persian soldiers do not understand what it is. It is not an elephant, not a tower, not a war chariot. It is something made of metal, moving and roaring. The scout units approach. Some raise their spears. Some prepare their arrows. Inside the tank, the commander looks around through the periscope and gives his first order. The main cannon is not used because the 120mm shells are limited. Every shot has to mean something, so the attack suddenly begins with the machine gun. The Persian scout line falls apart within seconds. Arrows hit the Abrams armor and bounce away. Spears do nothing. The cavalry are too scared to even get close to the tank. The machine gun breaks the formation of the entire Persian army, and the horses become restless. Even the bravest ones only manage to get in front of it, but they are run over and wiped out. But there is an important detail here. God King Xerxes is watching the Abrams from a safe area. He carefully observes its every move. He is trying to understand what kind of animal the Abrams is. At the front side of Thermopylae, the Spartans see this metal beast from a distance. They do not know what it is. They think it is help sent by the gods. They get excited because it is fighting their enemies. They strike their spears against the ground and thank Zeus. Among the Greek allies, the panic begins to fade. The warriors who were thinking about retreating just moments ago raise their shields again. Xerxes gives his first orders to his army. He sends archers to the high points and the mountains. He sends some of the cavalry and war chariots to fight the tank. The first major attack begins in open ground. Persian cavalry try to approach from both sides. War chariots come from the front. The archers raise their bows at the same time. Inside the tank, the gunner locks onto the target. The commander gives a short order. The 120mm cannon fires. The first shell tears apart the line where the war chariots have gathered. Then the machine gun comes into play. The cavalry charge breaks before it can even reach the tank. The Persian army is thrown back once again. But even inside this victory, there is bad news. The crew spends its first main cannon shell, and now they only have around 40 shells left. The tank commander knows this, so the commander changes the target. The goal is no longer to crush the Persian army. The goal is to find Xerxes. A huge crowd appears on the thermal screen. Tents, fires, guards, and soldiers constantly moving. Everything suggests that the king is there. The gunner aims. The commander waits a few seconds and gives the order to fire. The 120mm shell devastates the Persian camp. But the bad news comes immediately. Xerxes is not there. Xerxes watches calmly. The way this machine moves, its firing speed, which directions it turns. And one thing catches his attention. The Abrams is fast on flat ground, but it slows down on rocky slopes. It leaves track marks, and it moves carefully between the rocks. Meanwhile, the immortals begin attacking toward the Spartans at Thermopylae. At the same time, other units keep the tank busy. They are looking for an opening and a weak point. The battle at the pass becomes brutal again. The Spartans and their Greek allies defend the pass with their lives. The tank opens fire several times on Persian units moving toward the pass. Every shot stops an attack, but every shot also reduces the tank's life. The crew can clearly feel this now. The machine gun ammunition is running low. The main cannon shells are running low. The fuel is running low. The commander moves to a new plan. If they cannot find Xerxes and their ammunition is going to run out, then they will risk being trapped and drive the tank at full speed into the camp to win this battle. An army of 250,000 is not made only of soldiers. It needs food, it needs water, it needs animals, it needs supply wagons. If you destroy these, the army cannot advance anyway. The Abrams charges into the rear side of the Persian camp. The first target is the supply wagons. The cannon fires and the transport line is wiped out. Then it drives through the water wagons. The Persian soldiers no longer know what they are supposed to protect. On one side, the Spartans are holding the pass. On the other side, the Abrams is tearing the entire supply system apart. God King Xerxes loses all his calm. For the first time, he understands the real danger of the tank. He now knows there are humans inside it. Because if the food and water system collapses, even if the Persians pass Thermopylae, they cannot continue the war. But Xerxes is not stupid. He watches the tank carefully and finally notices its weak point. The Abrams is terrifying in open ground, but on rocky terrain, it slows down. In narrow areas, it cannot turn. In rocky regions, it has to move more carefully. Its tracks make it powerful, but they also tie it to the ground. Xerxes gives the order. Persian soldiers pile stones in front of narrow roads. They dig trenches. They deliberately leave some supply wagons out in the open. They want to pull the tank into a trap. If the Abrams get stuck once, they can take control of the battle again. The tank crew realizes this too late. They were aiming to crush the gathered siege towers, but they do not realize it is a trap. The Abrams enters the trench. Suddenly, its front side drops down. One of the tracks sinks into loose soil. The tank shakes and stops. Persian soldiers begin approaching while shouting. For the first time, the Iron Beast becomes motionless. The machine gun opens fire. The Persians are thrown back, but the tank still cannot get out. The commander makes a quick decision. Two crew members go outside. They use the tank's body as cover and place shields, stones, and broken pieces of wood under the track. Then they quickly jump back inside. The Abrams shakes at first, then climbs out of the trench. But in that moment, the commander understands this. At this rate, reaching the supply lines is no longer possible. Trenches are spreading everywhere. Xerxes is always one step ahead of them, and the fuel gauge is now in a truly dangerous place. 9 cannon shells left. Fuel, 45 minutes. The crew looks at each other. The final plan begins. The tank turns back. It returns to the narrow entrance of Thermopylae, that corridor only a few hundred meters long. It takes position right behind the point held by Leonidas's men. There is no more striking supplies, no more searching for Xerxes. There is only holding this pass. As long as this pass is held, the Persians cannot advance. Hours pass. The cannon shells run out one by one. The machine gun still works, but the ammunition is at a critical level. The number of men beside Leonidas is also falling, from 300 to 200, from 200 to 150. The immortals are wearing them down. The Persians are so many. Even though tens of thousands of them are taken down, they keep coming. But the Abrams is also dying now. The commander counts the last 3 cannon shells. The first shell stops the war chariots piled up at the pass. The second shell breaks the front line of the immortals. When the third shell is fired, the inside of the tank becomes silent for a moment, because the main cannon is now finished. All that remains are the machine guns, a few grenades, and a small amount of fuel. Xerxes gives his final order. All the pressure is directed toward the narrow entrance of Thermopylae. The Persian soldiers understand that the tank is now tired. For the first time, they are not afraid while attacking it. Also, King Xerxes sends 20,000 of his men behind the Thermopylae pass. Now the tank crew and the Spartans are trapped in the middle. The modern soldiers are now fighting with rifles and spending all their bullets. The Spartans and the remaining Greek warriors slowly pull back from both sides of the tank. The Persians think this is an escape. They think the road at the end of the pass is opening. But actually, this is exactly what the crew wants. More of the Persian army pours into the narrow corridor. The crew does not abandon the tank. The commander gives the final order. The soldiers place the explosives they prepared earlier under the tank and around its body. There is no need to explain how it works. They place all the explosives they have around the tank and inside the corridor of the pass. The final bullets of the machine gun are spent so the crew can place the bombs. The team returns to the tank. When the Persians see that the tank is motionless, they attack with all their strength. They try to hit the tank with spears and swords, climbing on top of it and searching for its weak point. And right at that moment, the explosives left on both sides of the pass, around the tank, and inside the narrow corridor where the Persians are packed together, explode at the same time. Stones break off from the slopes, war chariots overturn, and the narrow corridor closes with smoke and wreckage. The front line of the Persian army collapses in an instant. Thousands of soldiers coming from behind stop without understanding what just happened, because the road they thought was open a few seconds ago no longer exists. The Abrams is not at the exact center of the explosion, but it is damaged so badly that it can no longer be used. Inside, the crew is thrown to the floor. They are wounded and dazed, but alive. The Abrams is sacrificed, but the team does not leave their tank in Persian hands. They do not allow them to pass through the pass. The surviving 100 to 150 Spartans raise their shields. No one fully understands what they just saw, but all of them realize one thing: the tank sacrificed itself. Xerxes is forced to step back, because even if he wins this battle now, this is no longer a war he can continue. He loses tens of thousands of soldiers. The order of his army is broken. Fear spreads through the entire Persian camp. Even if they pass through the pass, they will not be able to continue the war. They retreat. At the end of the day, a single Abrams cannot destroy the entire Persian Empire. God King Xerxes is still alive, but at Thermopylae, the fate of the war changes. The occupation of Athens is prevented. If you enjoyed this video, check out the playlist on the screen. I'm sure there are a few what-if scenarios in there that you've probably thought about at 3 a.m. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next one.